Hello, everyone, and welcome to the LeanTossup Call of Duty League podcast. My name is Robert, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, CDLMetrics. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. Yeah, we have arrived into March now, one of the best months of the year, I would say. March Madness right around the corner, and we're in the heart of the CDL season. I know like the NFL free agency stuff is going to kick off pretty soon, or has kicked off already. Yeah, fun time of the year. We just had Minor 2. That was a lot of fun to watch, and now more qualifier matches this weekend to talk about. So excited as always.
Yeah, and this week this week I'm actually really excited for this week because this is a jumbo stuffed week. This is a 3-4-4 week, and I think it's actually one of the last 3-4-4 weeks, if I'm not mistaken, for a while at least. We got this week is a jumbo stuff week. Next week is a 3-4-3 week. Not as great, but still good. And then we're into major two. But then for some reason we only have 3 weeks for each of the other majors, so I'm a little iffy on that. But whatever. Let's get into this one for now. Here's how we did last week. So last week I had a clean sweep last week for minor one. That's pretty cool. I haven't had a lot of those, so I'm pretty happy with it. You unfortunately went 0-3. Two of them were me against you straight up. You had Boston versus Vancouver. I went straight up Boston. I went Vancouver head to head, and then Vegas plus 2.5. You had Optic minus 2.5. We went up against each other, and we won. That being said, though, after game two, I really wish I had Optic. The Optic minus 2.5. I'm like, oh no. That's the thing.
Yeah.
But somehow they pulled it out. Yeah, I didn't love that, but yeah, we'll go from there. And then also combined model plays, not a lot last week, but we were all over LAG on the combined model play. We love Vancouver in the control. And we liked Boston in the hard point. That one didn't go, but Minnesota map 3, that was pretty good. And we didn't really agree on any minor two futures. There wasn't really anything. I didn't bet. I should have bet the Vancouver to make the final. I really should have done that. That would have paid out like an insane amount of money. I didn't, though. I regretted it. Last week was a very busy week for me personally, and I just forgot, and it was like too late. Yeah. But it's okay. You live some, you learn some, and I think going forward, I think there's going to be opportunities like that in the future where we're going to have the opportunity to find, if we get more of these minor tournaments, because of the way they work, because of the streaky nature of them, along combined with the fact that you're going to be able to, it's single elimination only, which is actually not horrible because of that fact, because it's only halfway through and you don't have all those weeks of data. I think the books are going to have struggle catching up in the future if there are more of these minor tournaments. Something to keep an eye on. A little bit of a loss there, but we're gonna have our moment in the sun again someday. League news. Yeah, the Thieves won minor 2. 3-0 3-0 run, obviously, because it's a single elimination, and 10-4 in maps. The story here is also Surge, right? Surge taking down Boston 3-1, then taking down FaZe 3-2, then Surge 3-0, and then getting into that best of 7 finals, which that was a really nice best of 7 finals. Very good game. I actually would love to rewatch some of those. Thieves, loving Thieves overs in finals, I gotta say. That being said, though, it was also a very good week for me, too, because I picked two of those teams are my teams. So first and second, that's 50 points to me. And yeah, that's a huge 50 points in the race. And we'll see. I'm really interested on Surge. I think we're going to talk about this. We're going to skip over this part because the first matchup is Surge versus Thieves, and we're going to talk about this again in a second. Let's just quickly talk on the qualifier expected wins. So we are currently projecting, you are at least, this is yours, mine are next up in the next slide. You've got Thieves at 6.16 wins, FaZe at 5.31 wins, and then a cluster here with Vancouver, Carolina, Cloud9, Toronto, Boston, all the way down to Boston down here, just above the cut line in Miami, and then Optic. Wow. Look at this. Little old Optic here. Below the cut line here, LAG, and then rough. That's very rough. And I think in many ways that's very similar to my projected. My model likes Vancouver just a little bit more, but again, a very similar pattern here. Boston and Miami exactly the same there. We both have Boston slightly ahead. Now, to be fair, those kind of average out to the same wins. Those could be two wins. It's basically the three win is the cut line, and then Texas, Vegas, and then my model for some reason likes Vegas, but it's not really liking Vegas. It just cumulative probability drags Vegas over that finish line there. What are your thoughts on this? Do you see this is the tier? It's not exactly the tier list, obviously, with FaZe in there. But do you think this is roughly what we're looking at and roughly the tier list going forward for this major?
Yeah, I'm actually pretty surprised with how much our expected win models agree. Like, ours are almost identical all the way through. We have a couple differences in the middle there where it gets muddy. Like, it's hard to differentiate those teams, if you will, because they have a similar number of wins already and their schedules look similar moving forward. So yeah, and that really does surprise me because we still have 2 more weeks left to go. I think it would make sense if our models were this close with 1 week left when we know a lot of the games have already finished and we know we have our projections for the upcoming week and we're pretty close most of the time anyway. Yeah, I'd say the biggest story with these expected wins is Boston versus Miami, right? Those two teams, especially with your model, those are very close, separated only by zero point 0.2 wins. For me, they're separated by about 0.4 wins. But those two teams will play in the last week of qualifiers. So that, I would say, is highly likely to be a match that will determine who gets a winner's bracket spot versus who gets a loser's bracket spot. Right now, for both of our models, it looks like Boston maybe have a slight edge in that, but they've been hitting a rough patch lately. Not that Miami has been great either, but just like where they sit now, Boston has an extra win, so that's given them a little boost that we see there. Yeah, Optic is a storyline. They're 10th in both of our models. Yeah, they've just been really bad. There's no sugarcoating it. We saw earlier, I was on them to sweep Falcons last week. It looked pretty good after they squeaked through in the round 11 search and destroy. I was like so relieved. And then they turn around and get 3-0'd in control. And if I'm not mistaken, Falcons had 2 offensive wins in that 3-0. That was ugly. Thankfully, they rebounded in hardpoint, but too little too late. And also, congratulations, you beat Vegas in a hardpoint. Everybody has done that. Yeah, Optic continued to be just a huge head scratcher. But yeah, I'm still excited to see how this plays out. We have a rough idea of how the seeding will go. But maybe if Optic can turn things on, maybe they can surge up above that cut line. But we'll have to wait and see for that because they haven't been good lately.
I think it's interesting in terms of for Vegas. You made a good point. They've not won a hard point all year. They've not won a single hard point, right? And they've not made it to map 5 all year. They definitely not won a series and not made it to map 5. And obviously that's very hard when you insta lose game 1 and 4. Yeah, it's really rough. I don't know what Vegas is doing. They're in deep trouble. They don't have a single CDL point, right? They're at 0, right? Yeah.
That's correct.
Yeah, good luck with that. I'm fairly sure they're going to be mathematically eliminated in probably just like probably a few games into Major 3. They'll be eliminated. So, yeah, good luck with that. But yeah, no, it's weird, and Optic clearly is having some problems, and it's weird, right? Because in our season thing, you didn't pick Optic, I didn't pick Optic. Doug Leby, shout out to him, gotta get him on from Major 2 podcast. He didn't pick Optic either. Like some people obviously picked Optic, but not a lot of people did pick Optic, and I think there is something to that, where it's a lot of people didn't fully trust the world champions, and they were proven right. They were proven right by that. So it's very interesting in that case. So yeah, we're gonna have to see. But anyway, moving on to the match previews, we've got odds via Bet365. Thieves versus Surge. We're gonna use this to talk about a more broader discussion of Surge because I want to talk a little bit about this. Thieves versus Surge. Thieves minus 225 on the money line. Surge plus 162. Thieves minus 1.5 plus 100. Surge plus 1.5 minus 138. Unfortunately, no spreads today because the lines just came out like less than 12 hours ago. I think they came out this morning. Minus 138 in the hard point, minus 138 in the Surge, and minus 400 in the control. So looking at the value, my model slightly likes the Thieves minus 1.5, not by a ton. It likes them in hard point. I suspect there will be a hard point spread bet in there once we have a line, and it likes them a little bit in control. But that's where we sit here. My question on it is this, is the fact that Surge obviously have come very far. This is a team that I think had 1 or 2 qualifier wins in the first stage. They got insta-eliminated in Minor 1, insta-eliminated in Major 1. Now they were on the doorstep of winning Minor 2. And I think they're probably functionally a lock for winner's bracket, if not actually a lock for winner's bracket. Do you think this is this just, oh, we added Neptune and this is team change boost and this is going to fade, or is this legitimately one of the top four teams in the league, like a top three, top four team?
That's a good question. I think, and I hate to cop out like this, but I think it's a little of both. Like, Neptune has undoubtedly made this team better. Like, you can't look at this team now and the way they play and then look at them play back in early January and say there's not a difference. There clearly is a difference. That being said, I think they have run well in terms of winning matches and winning close maps, specifically in hardpoint and in search. They have a handful of round 11 wins that have gotten them through, and they have some hardpoint wins that are within 20 to 30 points, and you keep racking those up. That's great, but eventually you might be on the wrong side of those 20 to 30 point wins. But still, very impressive stuff. They're doing this against the top competition. And yeah, just look at last weekend as an example. Like, Vancouver Surge's hardpoint was phenomenal. And one thing I do want to point out here is if Miner 2 had the same structure as Miner 1, Vancouver Surge would have won Miner 2. Just going off of, like, how the maps were won. Yeah, Vancouver won map 1, 4, and 5. And that is good enough in Miner 1. But unfortunately, they added a couple maps to the championship match this time around. Vancouver Surge were right there. I think you point, like, the biggest just difference between Thieves and Surge, right? It's very clear. It was Control. Vancouver Surge did not win a single round of Control, and they played it twice. That's a bit concerning. I think justifiably Thieves are a minus 400 favorite in that specific mode, and I would love to see what the minus 1.5 in Control would be for them, because Thieves it wasn't just like last weekend that was good for Thieves Control. It's been dominant all year. At least on the current map set, I have Thieves at 17-4 overall in Control, and I don't want to go fall in love with them too much because of one game mode that they only play once a series. But when your game 3 is that reliable, and we know their hardpoint can be the best whenever they want it to be, you'd really just have to win like half of your searches. Not even half. You could be a 40-60 team in Search and Destroy and like still be elite. So I think our models are directionally accurate. I think they're a little high on Thieves just based on what we saw last weekend. Just because Surge's hardpoint is just, they've rebounded so well based on where they started this year that I think my model is a little slow to react to that. But I think we're in for another really good series this weekend. I lean Thieves ever so slightly, but I'm really just going to kick back, relax, and watch this because it's going to be a good one, I hope.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think this could be a very good game on Friday. Match 2 on Friday, Ultra versus Falcons, Ultra minus 10,000. A very believable minus 10,000 money line. Vegas plus 1,400, minus 2.5, minus 175. Plus 2.5, plus 125, minus 3,300 in the hard point. It's earned, it's deserved. Minus 350 in the search, minus 800 in the control. Yeah, my model actually does the plus 2.5, and my model likes them in map 1 to not get as killed. But yeah, Ultra's a very clear heavy favorite here. I don't know. The thing is, it's just like my model. I think my model does a poor job of truncating. One team is just so much worse than all the other teams. Like, my model is just dragging Vegas along, and I think, is it a problem? Yes, but to fix that problem, would I create 3 other problems in the model? Yes, so I'd probably just rather not do that. And I think the thing is, it is weird, right? Because to be fair, every once in a while, Vegas does randomly pull off a map win, and they look good, right? They've looked good in 1 or 2 hard points. They've come close. I think they randomly lost to Vegas, or no, they lost to, did they lose to Thieves by 50 in a hard point or something? Or it was Thieves, or it was one of the better teams, they lost by 50. And everybody else is going to be like, yeah, okay, whatever. But my mom's like, hey, that's pretty good, right? And it clearly isn't, but there's lines there, and my model doesn't really understand that, okay, Vegas, I think my models perpetually have value on Vegas because of the way betting works, and 2, because I just don't think they're that bad. I think when they have the ability to show something, it's better than not, right? What's your thoughts on this? Do you see any value in Vegas, or are you just going to stay away from Vegas?
I do sadly see some value on the Vegas Falcons here, and I am very worried that we're just going to alternate weeks where I really like Vegas and they get 3-0'd in every series that weekend, and then the following weekend I'll be completely off of them, and then they'll show up and win a map or maybe two one of these days, and so that's where I'm at now. But I think you also have to assess Toronto Ultra as of late. And to me, like when I adjust my model to just look at since Major 1, right? Since Major 1, so that's Major 1, and then the Major 2 qualifiers that we have so far, and last weekend with Minor 2, Toronto Ultra are like mediocre. They're kind of league average, and I guess you can categorize them that on the season as a whole. But I don't know, they've been underwhelming lately. And I don't know if this is a great matchup for Vegas because what's their path to success? It's search and control. And Toronto, I think, are still a good search team, but they've tailed off a little bit lately. And control, like Vegas, they just 3-0'd Optic last weekend. And I know this is a completely different Optic team than what we're used to, but 3-0ing just about anybody in control, winning 2 attack rounds, that is very impressive. Regardless of who you're playing. Don't get it wrong. I kind of like Vegas. I think they've got a shot here to cover the 2.5. You get a plus 125 outcome or a price on that. Vegas have covered a plus 2.5 in exactly half of their matches this year. Yeah, I don't hate it. And I think as long as Vegas keep losing series, I think they're going to have a little bit of value in just about every subsequent series after that, just because people don't want any part of them. And I get it. They're horrible. They're awful. I don't know if they're going to win a hard point all year. To your question earlier about how they've had close games in hard point, they have had a few, but they were much earlier in the season. Their closest was a 6-point loss to Optic Texas. That was in early January. But they also have a couple of 14-point losses, but those are from weekend number 1 when they had a completely different roster. So since then, it's a lot of 50 to 150 point losses in there, like just very comfortable losses, if you will. But I still think they have enough shots at winning a hard point. Is it going to be against Toronto Ultra? I think no. I think it's probably going to happen more likely against an LAG, although LAG is okay at hard, sneaky okay. But it could happen. It could happen this year. And Vegas versus Optic last weekend, if they win that round 11 in game 2, and that control goes the exact same way, we're going to a game 5 against Optic. And oh my God, I would not want to be Optic in that situation. We're close. I think Vegas can just do enough here to be interesting. And I hate spending this much time talking about the worst team in the league, but I think they're valuable. I'll just leave it at that and probably be wrong at the end of the day.
Maybe you convince me to throw a little bit on a plus 2.5 bet. I think that may be worthwhile somewhere down the line. We'll see what the spread looks like in that match. Friday match 3, and this one could also be a relatively good one. Cloud9 versus LAG. Cloud9 minus 225, LAG plus 162, Cloud9 minus 1.5 plus 100, plus 1.5 for LAG minus 138, minus 200 in the hard point, minus 163 in the search, and minus 120 in the control. Yeah, my model somewhat likes the Cloud9 minus 1.5 just by a little bit. It likes New York in the money line a bit as well. Yeah, I don't hate Cloud9 here. I think my model likes LAG in the hard point by just a little bit, but it really likes Cloud9 in the search, and it really likes them in the control. Your model also agrees with me on the search, but it doesn't like them so much in the control. Do you see value in the minus 1.5 here, or do you lean more the other way to LAG plus 1.5?
Yeah, this is tough for me. LAG, my model says there's some value on LAG here to cover a plus 1.5. I don't hate that, but Cloud9 have been much, much better the last month of the season. Like, considerably better, where I would say you can argue they've been like a top 3, top 4 team since Major 1. And not that their Major 1 was anything special, but they have some quality wins. And a lot of it is predicated on search and destroy. Their search right now is nuclear in terms of how good it is. And part of me says that's great, but part of me says that's going to come back down to earth a little bit here, just with how up and down search can be. But their hard point's all right, and their control is fine, and they haven't shown me much of anything. They got a win last weekend versus Heretics, but to me that was number 10 versus number 11, so it doesn't mean much when you go to a game 5 and win that, and then turn around the next day and get 3-0 slammed by Royal Ravens, who are a good team. Let's not bash on Ravens at all. But LAG they're just stuck in the mud at this point. They're trying some roster changes that haven't quite worked. I think that the team is still better than what their record has shown, but I don't know. Are they going to beat a Cloud9 team that's trending in the right direction? Maybe, but I wouldn't put money on it. Yeah, to me, this is mostly a stay away. If you like the Cloud9 side, go for it. They've been very good lately. If you maybe want to find some buy low opportunities and want to take LAG, I totally get that as well. I'm sitting on the fence on this one. We'll see how this plays out. But yeah, I don't really have a strong opinion either way here.
That's very fair. I think it's a bit. I like that play, but outside of that, I don't love many other plays in this. Maybe some search hardpoint, maybe some search control, but nothing else much in this one. Saturday, match 1, FaZe versus Rocker. FaZe minus 500 money line, Rocker plus 333. FaZe minus 1.5, minus 225. Rocker plus 1.5, plus 162. FaZe minus 350, minus 188, and minus 250 in the hardpoint search and control. My model likes Minnesota just ever so slightly, just a little hair. My model likes Minnesota a little bit in the hardpoint, likes FaZe a little bit more than the book, the search, and kind of likes Minnesota a little bit in the control. But again, these are very small differences. My model's pretty much bang on with this. The only real difference is a plus 1.5. I have that priced at plus 130. It's plus 162, so there is some value in that. Maybe something in the hardpoint, maybe a hardpoint spread is called for here. But that's how I see this. Where do you see the value here?
Yeah, I agree. Our models are very close here, and I don't love it because we're taking the opposite side of the team that's playing Atlanta FaZe, and that tends to go poorly. But Minnesota, I feel like, are this team at this current point in time that are like sneaky underrated. And I took them last week to win outright versus Cloud9, and man, all my picks last week were just heartbreakers because Minnesota, they go down 2-0, and then they win map 3, they win map 4, and I'm like, hey, now they got a shot, lose map 5. Not quite there for the reverse sweep, but they were right there in some of those matches. Like map 1, that was a 9-point win for Cloud9. Map 2 was a round 11 win for Cloud9. Just right there. Minnesota comfortable 3-0 control, relatively comfortable map 4, and then they get slammed in map 5. You can make an argument Minnesota were the better team than Cloud9, but Cloud9 ended up with the win in that series. And Minnesota in their qualifier games so far have been solid. Their major 1 was okay, not super special, but it was solid. And Atlanta FaZe, they only played 1 game last weekend, and it was to Vancouver. They lost. They very easily could have won that. I still think FaZe are great, but the price on Minnesota is enticing. Minnesota are a quality team. We're asking a lot for them to even push to a game 5, but I think they have just enough firepower to maybe do. So the plus 162 to me is enticing. I think maybe they can split these hard points. I think control could maybe even go their way. And then, yeah, search is up in the air. I think they're a good enough team to compete in that as well. So across the board, like, Rocker have a shot. And I'm terrified because usually when I like a team this much versus FaZe, it ends up like FaZe just put them in a body bag. So we'll see how it goes. But I'm in agreement with you. I think Rocker are sneaky underrated right now. Yeah.
The thing is, and I think it comes down to this, is do you view what's happened with FaZe the last couple of days, the last couple of weeks here? FaZe has lost to Surge twice now. Mm-hmm. Do you think that is more Surge massively overperforming? And again, there is clear evidence of Surge doing a lot better. That's 100% true. But do you think it's more Surge massively overperforming, or do you think it's FaZe maybe taking a little bit of a dip here?
Yeah. I think it's more about Surge. I totally agree with that. Surge's turnaround has been amazing, and I think Atlanta FaZe, they lost both of those series. They very easily could have won one of those, if not both. They were pretty close, if I'm not mistaken, although the first one was a 3-1 that went to Surge. That was even more impressive. But FaZe, I think, early in the season at least, and when I say early in the season, I literally mean from the start of the season up until when they won Major 1, they were quite good for most of that period, but a lot of their success was reliant on search and destroy, and we just know that that's what Cloud9 is sitting at right now. They've been very good in that mode. Can they sustain that success? Maybe not, but maybe if Hardpoint and Control can come up a little bit, that can offset those search and destroy regressions. FaZe are still a phenomenal team. I'm just a little worried that at points they can go cold in Hardpoint. And if they do that against this Minnesota team, Minnesota could absolutely pick off a Hardpoint, maybe two, if FaZe show up kind of slow on Saturday. That's all I'll leave it at, but no doubt, FaZe are still amazing. I would argue they're maybe still the best team in the game, if not top 2 at least. I'm just saying, Minnesota, you can make an argument, are like maybe number 4, number 5 right now, and I just don't think the number 4 or number 5 team in the league should be like plus 162 just to force a map 5. So that's where I'll leave it at.
Yeah, I agree with that. I will make one point on there, though, one counterpoint to what you said. Now, obviously, I think it is a lot of Surge massively overperforming, but what I will say is that Surge is overperforming, sure, but Thieves still beat Surge, right? FaZe beat Thieves, but Thieves then beat Surge. So theoretically, by mathematical principle of better, I don't know what mathematical. There is one. It's not. I'm not sure what. Can't remember what it's called right at this point. But if it was the case that it was just Surge massively overperforming, then they should have also massively overperformed over Thieves. They should have lost. They should have beaten Thieves and FaZe instead of beating the team that they beat. It's a weird middle where it's maybe, again, it's not a massive amount of depreciation, but maybe FaZe did come down a bit, right? We think about FaZe started 0-2, right? They started this year 0-2, right? Maybe it's not crazy to think that FaZe maybe isn't the best FaZe we've seen in a while, right? Maybe that's not the case. Maybe this FaZe team massively overperformed in the Major 1, and now it's on a bit of a downswing a little bit. It's not so much like a massive downswing. It's more a leveling off. Maybe that's what we're looking at here.
Yeah, and just to counterpoint your counterpoint, and we can move off of this game here in a little while. But so Vancouver's series against FaZe last weekend, I look at Control again, like FaZe 3-0'd them in Control. That was on Protocol. The Thieves series, the final, right? Thieves 3-0 on Vault and a 3-0 on Hacienda. That's all of the Control maps, and Surge was 0-9 in that specific mode. So that right now is their big bugaboo. If they can improve even a little bit in Control, Surge could be, and this is crazy to say, but Surge could be the best team we have right now in the league. But until we get that, they're still held back. And again, if the Vancouver LA Thieves series was a best of 5, Vancouver do squeak out a win in that scenario. So we're saying the same stuff, but it's just so delicate how close these teams are, I think, right now. And just trying to figure out like where the edges might be, because we are really trying to find them just with how good these teams all are performing. So
it's funny. We spent, I don't even know what, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 minutes on this, and like the graphs are like the same. All levels are basically all the graphs basically the same. We spend the most time talking about this one, which, to be fair, that's what I love talking about that. I'm sure you do, and I'm sure our listeners love when we talk about this stuff to this extent. But yeah, that's funny though. Anyways, Saturday match 2. This one's apparently a dead heat. Cloud9 versus Ravens, minus 120 each way. Cloud9 plus 1.5, minus 275. But that's whatever. That doesn't matter because it's shaded massively. And then Ravens minus 1.5 plus 200. Again, basically a dead even on this. Cloud9 is favored in the hard point, minus 150 to plus 110. Ravens are favored in the search, minus 138 to plus 100. And then Ravens are also favored in the control, minus 150 to plus 110. So my model definitely disagrees with that assessment. My model thinks that Cloud9 is a bit worse in the hard point, but thinks it's a lot better in the search, and maybe a bit worse in the control. So it only really has some favorites in hard point and control search, but guess what? Those are the two most important modes, so congratulations. My model's got a little bit of value on. My model likes Cloud9 to win this thing, especially because and what people who will see my stuff will generally see is that if my model likes you to win search, it generally will like you to win the series because game 5 is search. So my model is kind of different. The fact that it has a weird kink where it's like if it's oh this team is way better, but you there's some points when the -1.5 is priced exactly the same in my model or very similar to the money line for a team, where it's you have to win this in 4. If you don't win this in 4, you're going to lose the search, right? I think that's actually accurate. I think the way books price it is wrong. I think in many cases, if a team doesn't win it in 4, it's game over. They will not win the game 5. So that's where I sit on this. But you're taking a much different attack. You actually like Carolina in here. Where do you want to sit on this? I'm going to be betting Cloud9 on here. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't blame you. My model does like Ravens, which I totally understand why. Ravens have just been a solid, if not above average team throughout the entire season. They've had some stretches where they have gone very hot, but they haven't really had any really slow stretches. And there was that period of time where they could not win a hard point, and that was like red alert, this team sucks. But then it's like they rebounded a little bit, and we know that their bread and butter is search and destroy and control. That being said, Cloud9, like I've said for their last match, like Cloud9 are really hot right now. Like sneaky, or I don't even know if it's sneaky anymore. I think people are woke to the fact that Cloud9 are playing very well now. So yeah, it's pick your poison here. Do you want to take a -20 on a team that is performing really right now, but maybe again, overperforming in search specifically, which I don't love because I think that'll come down, especially against a quality search team like we know Royal Ravens are? Or do you want the -120 on a team that is just like they show up and they take care of business against the teams they should beat and they fall flat against the elite teams of the league, and who knows what they're going to do against a team that is of comparable power, in my opinion. For me, it's totally a stay away. I get that my model likes Carolina, but I think New York's just recent form has maybe scared me off of this a little bit. If I had to pick a side, I'll take Ravens. I think the map 3 for Ravens, even though it's priced at -150, is somewhat appealing. Just because Cloud9, even in this hot stretch for Cloud9, you can still make an argument that Royal Ravens have been a cut above in that mode specifically. So yeah, it's hard here for this one. Even the shades of blue are so similar. I really can't tell these teams apart at this point in time. Yeah, if you like Cloud9, I'm not going to stop you at all. Go for it.
Oh, yeah, I actually just realized there is two different. I thought this was just the same shade of blue.
Yeah.
I thought this was just the same blue. I'm like, I didn't even realize, but it is actually two different blues. One for Carolina, one for New York. Yeah, because it's really hard to put a white line on a graph back that's white. But yeah, no, that's yeah. This one is gonna be interesting. I think I do want to sit back and see this one. This one should be pretty good. But yeah, I'm taking Cloud9 and we'll see. Saturday match 3. This is gonna be pretty good Saturday here. Thieves -1,000 versus Breach +550. -2.5 +125, +2.5 -175. Thieves are -400 on the money line, -163 in -400 in the hard point, -163 in the search, and -2,000 in the control. So look out below on that one there. Yeah, my model's got nothing here. My model's just like, yeah, this is I'm not touching this one. You like Boston a little bit. Yeah, my model just is indifferent. My model is just watch this one. Just don't even do anything. Your model is Boston's maybe slightly undervalued, but you definitely don't want to touch Boston here either. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, I think if I had to take one thing, the only thing I feel comfortable with is Boston map 2 at +120. Yeah, like Boston have been pretty bad since Major 1. Like you could argue bottom 3, bottom 4 team, absolutely, since that Major in Madrid. The one thing that's been steady for them is search, and Thieves have proven like they'll win about half of their searches. So -163 for Thieves or +120 for Boston. I think that one's pretty easy to see. Boston probably split 2 searches against Thieves if they were to play 2 of them. And Boston they've beaten Thieves with this exact roster earlier in the season online. Like, it's not crazy for me. And one thing I want to mention, and I know we'll get to this other match at the end of the show, but Boston had a weekend, I don't know if it must have been December or January, where they played LA Thieves and they played Atlanta FaZe. And we're back to that exact weekend this weekend. And at the time, Boston were plus 1.5 in both of those matches, and pretty significant underdogs to cover that plus 1.5. And I took both of those plus 1.5s, thinking, I think they have the juice to at least force one of these to a game 5. And I said, don't be surprised if Boston win one of these games. And I believe it went, Boston got 3-0 slammed by FaZe, and then they turned around on Sunday and took Thieves to a game 5 and won the game 5. This exact same Boston team. I don't know what's going on with them right now. They just have gone ice cold, but we've seen it from them. We saw it earlier in the season, and maybe now this is just, it's a classic case of Boston had the right stuff early in the season when the game is still, tricky to figure out for some teams. Spawn locations and strategies in Search and Destroy, and we did have a map set change in there with Rewind came out, and we've had a lot of changes to the meta since the beginning of the season. So maybe some of that is impacting Boston. I just know they have it within them. This roster showed earlier this year that they can compete. But that being said, I don't want to step in front of this Thieves team at all. But the price on them is just, it's not super appealing whatsoever. If I had to take one thing, Boston and Surge plus 120, but they very well could lose this 3-0 and it's over in 20 minutes. We'll see how it goes. I'm hoping for a good match, though, because Saturday is pretty loaded with matches.
Yeah. Moving on to match 4, and this is another minus 120 each way one. This one could be pretty good. Optic versus Heretics, minus 120 each way. Optic plus 1.5. They gave them the plus 1.5 for some reason. Minus 250. Heretics minus 1.5. Plus 175. Again, that doesn't matter. It's basically the same each way. Optic, actually technically an underdog in the hard point. Heretics minus 125 in the hard point. Optic is the favorite in the search minus 125. And then Heretics is the favorite in the control minus 125. Very even game here. This is just right down the middle here. My model actually likes Optic a little bit. My model thinks Optic is decidedly better in the hard point. It thinks that Optic is ever so slightly better on the money line, but very little. If you put a gun to my head, I'd have to bet Optic here. I don't love saying those words, but those are words that we're saying here. My model does like Optic in the hard point, though, and I think that's a pretty fair assessment. I think that could be a pretty good... I like that. I think that's a point of attack here, especially if you get something like an Optic plus spread in the hard point, or maybe even just Optic minus 110 in the hard point. That's not a bad bet. Where do you see this one? Do you like Miami here, or do you think this is where Optic finally maybe starts turning this around? What do you think?
I don't want to talk about these Optic matches because I literally have no idea. For how much I sat on the fence for that New York Carolina series and a couple others maybe, this one is the ultimate fence sit game. Optic have shown us absolutely nothing since the Major 2 qualifiers started. They have not won a map against a team not named Vegas Falcons. And even Vegas Falcons got a map off of them last weekend. It is so bad, not even to mention that the last time these teams matched up was Major 1, Round 1. And we know how that ended. Miami 3-2 win, and that started a huge run for them all the way to third place. Optic fell down to loser's bracket, got a win against LAG, I think. Lose to Carolina, you're done. And since then, it's been so bad. So you can absolutely make a case for Miami here. Miami beat them the last time out. Since then, Miami's been a better team. But on the flip side, this Optic team won champs last year. And through Major 1, were one of the better teams in the league. But the whole, the wrench that gets thrown into this is that Optic team is not this Optic team. This Optic team is the team that won champs. That Optic team at Major 1 had Hook, not Pred. And for some reason, that has just completely changed the dynamic of this whole team. And it's to the point now where I wonder if Optic are like, man, did we F up with this whole Pred thing? We said he was gone, and now he's back after Hook was so good for us for 2 months. It's bizarre. It's so weird. I have no pick for this game. I have no pick. My model says Optic 60-40, but honestly, with how they've been playing, 50-50 seems right. I thought about this game specifically yesterday, thinking if I was setting the price, what would I set it at? And I was just like, just make it even both sides. And sure enough, that's where we are. So yeah, I cannot wait to watch this. Like, Optic being bad is somehow really, like, it makes the league more intriguing. Like, I cannot wait to watch this series just to see how it plays out, because Optic have to win a map against someone not named Vegas. I think Miami is a good matchup for that to happen, but does that mean another 2-3 loss? A 1-3 loss? Do they get swept again? I don't know, but it's fascinating to figure out. If you like Optic, you think they bounce back, I totally understand why, but if you're someone who likes Miami, I'm not going to get in your way either, because Optic have shown nothing. That's all I can talk about this game for. It's so weird.
No, I agree with that. I think it does make the league so much more intriguing, right? This is one of the storied franchises in the entire league, and it's just, you have no idea if they're good or not from one week to the next. So it's so weird. And the thing is, again, normally with Optic, we've always had this. There's always been like, oh, are they actually good or not? And the answer is mostly no. They're usually not that good. But in this case, it's very special because it's just, are they good now or not, right? It's just like, it's such a hard call. I honestly don't know. But we'll have to see. Yeah, I don't know. It's usually it's whether or not they're good or not, and usually they underperform expectations, but usually they're not the previous year's champs winners. They're the current world champions. And we're like, are they good, or they could just be trash? It's very bizarre, but very entertaining though, for sure. Sunday, another 4-piece here on Sunday. Vegas versus LAG. LAG a minus 5,000 against the Vegas Falcons. Minus 2.5, minus 138. Plus 2.5, plus 100. Minus 2,500 in the hard point. This is like the second worst team against the worst team, and it's like you're minus 2,500 in the hard point against you. Minus 200 in the search, and then minus 1,400 in the control. Again, just, that's rough. Now, this graph is where we have very different numbers than this graph. Both of us absolutely love Vegas plus 2.5 here. We absolutely love them. Mm-hmm. My model significantly likes them in the hard point. My model thinks they can make a distant game of this, but a game of this nonetheless. Loves them in the search, and hell, even as, hey, this is not even a horrible control team. Is this the limit here? Can they finally get to a game 5? Could they possibly win a series here? What do you think here?
Oh my God. Okay, so yes, I like Vegas. Again, I'm with you. It's terrifying, but this is, yeah, I agree. This is the 12th best team versus the 11th best team. And if they're going to go to a map 5, it's going to be here. And if they're going to win a series, this is your shot, Vegas. We both think Vegas should be slight favorites in map 2. You are right on that 50-50 line. I'm a little above that. Their search has fallen off a little bit since the roster changes have happened. But LAG are okay at search. They're not even okay. They rebounded well last week. They got 2 search wins off of Miami before losing a search to Carolina. For them, going 2-1 in search is amazing. And again, part of my thinking on search and destroy is that all the teams are going to get squished into the middle by the end of the year. But I don't know. Vegas plus 150 to win that map 2, I think is a great price. We just saw Vegas 3-0 Optic in map 3. And the fascinating thing with this is map 3, in my opinion, control. Vegas, all of their success in control this year is vault. They're 3-6 on that map. So 33% win percentage. They've won a third of their games on vault control. Specifically, the other 2 maps, 0-5 combined. That being Hacienda and Protocols. Competitive in vault, very bad in the other 2. LAG, though, their best map in control is also vault. So I don't love that. I think that means we're definitely getting a vault. But according to my numbers, LAG are the number 3 team in vault, 6-2 on the season. You look at the other combined maps, they're 2-4 on. All signs point to we're going to get vault in control. I think LAG are the better control team if they should be favored. Should they be minus 1,400? No, that is crazy high in my opinion. I think it should be like minus 300. And I know that's still a big price, but That brings down the win probability by quite a bit. I think Vegas can get this done in a map 2. I think they could even scratch out a map 3. We just saw it last weekend. And if they do that, we're going to a game 5 and maybe they could win it. I'm not predicting that, but I'm saying Vegas plus 2.5 at even money is solid. Like I said earlier, they have gone to a map 4 half of the time this season. This is an easy opponent in theory, right? This is one of those opponents where they can push to that map 4, if not that map 5. So I don't want to call my shot and say Vegas are going to win this, but I want to say this is where it's going to happen, because if it doesn't happen here, I don't know where it's going to happen.
The thing is, you're getting to a certain point where there are only so many more opportunities to win games. Maybe they play LAG again. I don't know.
They do not. That is the thing. They don't in Major 3 qualifiers or Major 4 qualifiers. Maybe they meet at a major, or I guess that would be it. There's no more minors. So it could still happen, but this is your shot, Vegas. Go for it.
The thing is, you have to feel for that team. It's very clear that you know that they are not happy with their season, and if they can pick off a win somewhere, you know they're going to try it as much as they can. They're going to be like, yes, this is our shot. And I think that's a very strong motivator. You've got an LEG team that's pretty deflated, and this is especially if Vegas. But see, this is the thing, right? The Vegas' success it's not they're building. They will get absolutely curb stomped by a team, and then they'll turn around and then they'll be like, oh, okay, we just won this control. We just won the search 6-3 and then took it to a round 5 control. It's just like they will just completely be up, and it's not even against. Oh, okay, they'll do that against the good. They'll get destroyed by the bad team, but then do that against the good team. It's insane. This team is insane. I have no idea what this team is, but yeah, it's crazy. So yeah, maybe the bad teams just don't want to lose to Vegas, and they're like, we can't lose to them. We can't lose to them. We can't lose to them. But at a certain point, this Vegas team will win. No one has gone winless in the CDL history. I think probably a Paris Legion team at some point probably came close, which is funny because that's actually the direct descendant of actually theoretically both of these teams, because Legion is actually them, but Vegas Falcons, it is them through a weird chain of things, but also technically LAG is the French teams. Yeah, this is like a battle for the soul of France. No pressure or anything, but yeah, I don't know. They've got a shot to make it a game here. They've got a shot to make it a competitive game. We'll see what they could do. Maybe get to a game 5. I think if you can get to a game 5, that's pretty cool. Match 2 on Sunday, Miami versus Surge. Surge minus 400 on the money line. Miami at plus 275. Surge minus 1.5, minus 150. Heretics plus 1.5, plus 110. Surge minus 275 on the hard point. Minus 200 in the search and minus 150 in the control. And yeah, across the board, this is kind of what we got here. My model actually kind of likes Miami a little bit. It likes them in the search. It likes them in the hard point, sorry. It likes them in the hard point. Like Surge in the search and in the control, but it does like Miami in the hard point. That's a little interesting. Surge had been pretty good in hard point, but it's weird that it likes Miami there. Do you see any value in this game, or is this just a stay away for you?
Yeah, I didn't look at this one super closely earlier. I will say I think our models are they're too low on Vancouver Surge Hardpoint, and that is going to change things for the price on the minus 1.5. Like, I'm way low on Vancouver minus 1.5. I'm like sub 40%, when the books are saying like, no, Vancouver minus 1.5 is 60% to happen. So, and I agree with that. Like, I think it's more in that ballpark, and you're closer to that as well. I will say we differ greatly on map 3, and that is the one spot where I might see some value is Miami. Map 3 plus 110. They've been like a solid control team all season, and like I just said with Vancouver, like they went 0-3 against, and again, this is against FaZe and Thebes, who we know are the best teams in the league, but they went 0-3 on all 3 control maps just 5 days ago. So, and I don't want to take too much of just those 3 maps, but Vancouver Surge Control is still a concern for me, and I think it's more of a toss-up game. So plus 110, you're getting a little bit of value, but yeah, I just think like Miami map 1 at plus 200 might still be value, but I just don't really want to like step in front of Vancouver Surge in hardpoint right now. So I expect Vancouver Surge to win. A 3-1 seems like it's going to be the outcome here. But I don't know. Miami sometimes show up and are competitive against these good teams. We'll see how it plays out, but I think Vancouver Surge get this done. Yeah, probably 3-1, but maybe it's closer than we think and we have another great series on our hands.
Hopefully, we'll see. Sunday match 3, another potentially good series. Ultra versus Optic. Ultra minus 225 on the money line. Optic plus 162. Ultra minus 1.5 plus 110. Optic plus 1.5 minus 150. Ultra minus 163 on the hard point, minus 163 in the search, and also minus 163 in the control. My model weirdly likes Optic, and I want to see Optic versus Miami because maybe that will disabuse my model of being favorable to Optic, or prove it right. I don't know. We're going to have to see, but my model weirdly likes Optic. And I actually, looking at this, your model kind of does too. Your model's not Optic to win, mind you. Optic to cover the plus 1.5. It likes it. Optic as this kind of underdog is interesting because most of the time usually we're finding value against Optic. It's very rare for me to be finding value on Optic. That's a very weird spot for me to be in. What do you think about this one?
Yeah, I don't. I just can't make a pick in any of these Optic series. I will say, if you think Optic are gonna bounce back like this weekend, wouldn't you rather just take, if they're gonna fully bounce back, take them in this spot against Ultra than against Heretics? And I know, like you mentioned, the Heretics match is first, so we get to maybe wait and see how that one plays out, and then you can take Optic. But we just saw this last weekend. Toronto 3-0 win, killed Optic on Skyline, actually, which is a relatively close map most of the time. 250 to 124 in favor of Ultra. The game 2 was around 11, so very close, but Ultra got it done. And then it did go to a round 5 in control. So those two maps, somewhat close. The hard point is a problem, though. You can't be losing by 126 to Toronto Ultra, who are, like, they're a solid hard point team, but they're not Thieves, they're not FaZe, they're solid, and you're getting killed by them. And Optic, the other 3 series that they've played against decent teams this qualifier, they've all been 3-0s, their hard point looks horrible. Those other games were against FaZe, Rocker, and Ravens. Yeah, it might happen this weekend. I don't know. I'd rather wait and see. But again, with Toronto, like, they've just been so-so over the last month. Like, they've been okay. I do think they'll win this series just based on how Optic have looked. But are the prices intriguing enough for me on the Ultra side? I don't really think so. Yeah, pass for me. Very interested to see how this one plays out. I'll probably be less interested to see how this plays out if Optic gets slammed by Miami the day before or 2 days prior, whatever it is. But yeah, this one is, I don't see how it's much different than last weekend's outcome, but maybe Optic get the round 11 win, or maybe Optic get the round 5 win in control. Can they extend the series? They're more than capable of doing that. Do they have enough firepower right now to win this? I don't know, but we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, we will. Moving on to the last match of the weekend, and maybe not the greatest match here of the weekend. Boston versus FaZe. FaZe minus 1,200 on the money line. Boston plus 600. FaZe minus 2.5 plus 110. Boston plus 2.5 minus 150. FaZe minus 334. FaZe minus 225. And FaZe minus 1,600 in hardpoint search and control, respectively. Yeah, that's pretty much what we've got here. My model actually has some slight value on FaZe minus 2.5. It's actually difficult to find value this week. But yeah, that's where we're at here. Not a lot of value on the board this week. Sometimes we get a lot of value on the board, sometimes we don't, but the books are catching up. Now, whether or not they might overcorrect in a future week and we find some more value again, I don't know. But right now, they're landing right where we are. But yeah, FaZe is a very clear favorite in all 3 maps. That's pretty much undisputed. Boston is a clear underdog in all 3 maps. That's also pretty much undisputed. You like them somewhat to do a bit better in the hardpoint and the search. I have less of a view of them on that. But, yeah. Outside of the minus 2.5 here, I don't know what else you'd want to play here.
Yeah, and again with Boston, like, I think if anything, I know my model likes them to cover the plus 2.5, but... And a lot of that value, it actually appears is coming from map 1. But again, just Boston and Hardpoint lately have really fallen off. And could they beat FaZe? Yeah. But I think it's more likely they get it done through Search and Destroy. And plus 162 is a somewhat intriguing price. I don't hate the idea of taking Boston map 2 versus Thieves at plus 120 and taking them map 2 against FaZe at plus 162 and just saying, hey, they'll win one of these. They're still a good enough Search team to hang around with these top teams in the league, I think. So that's where I land on Boston right now. I'm really only interested in Search. Their control has been horrendous. And yeah, we saw this earlier in the year. It was a FaZe 3-0. I don't know. It's just tricky. It's just so tricky with Boston right now. I think they can bounce back. Optic, I think they could bounce back at any moment. I'm worried that the best we've seen from Breach is just in the past at this point. Yeah, Boston map 2 for me. Maybe that's something you're interested in. Probably not. If you like FaZe, sure, go for it. The minus 2.5 is plus money, so I could very easily see that happen. But yeah, a dud to end on Sunday, which is a bummer. But maybe Boston can prove us wrong and make this interesting.
Maybe. We'll see. Now, models versus markets. Here are our picks for this week. I am actually taking the minus 2.5 there with FaZe. I'm also going to take the Cloud9 minus 2.5 versus LEG, and I'm also going to take Cloud9 versus Carolina. I'm actually very much on board with your picks. We are not going up against each other this week. That is different than last week. We are fully on we are all on the same team this week. LAG plus 2.5 versus LAG. I like that line. Vegas plus 2.5 versus Toronto. Throw a little on that. Not a lot. $10-15, something like that. Just a little taste. Because that's the second match on the weekends. Nothing. Don't break the bank on that one. And then, yeah, Minnesota versus FaZe, I could see something happen there. That one could be kind of close. Combined model plays, again, a lot of the same plays we talked about. You've got your two Vegas plays. Vegas money line coming up as a play. That's a little scary. Vancouver map 2, but we like Thieves money line minus 1.5 map 1. Cloud9 map 2, LAG map 1. Minnesota, the full Minnesota package. Carolina, we like Carolina in the control against Cloud9, and we like Optic. We do Optic a little bit, just ever so slightly. Vegas, Miami, Toronto, and then Optic. We like Optic versus Toronto. A little bit of a scary place to be in for that one. Any other thoughts on any sort of strategies this week? What you got?
Yeah, we're all over the board. I think we made our case for Vegas, or at least I made the case for Vegas. Strong Vegas. I think they're in a good spot to at least force one game for this week. And hey, maybe if things go right, they can win against LAG. Very unlikely, but the payout is crazy. Yeah, I'd say Minnesota is another one we're keying in on. It's against FaZe, which is terrifying, but again, Minnesota may be sneaky competitive in that game mode. And yeah, the Optic stuff I don't love, but technically we do have some value on both of their matches. So, hey, maybe our models are trying to tell us this will be the weekend where they bounce back. And maybe they're right, but we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, we'll have to see. Next up, we will be back next week. We're going to keep saying Thursday, but we try to record these early in the week, but Bet365 has not been very helpful with us in terms of betting lines. Shout out to them for not helping with that. But yeah, we're trying to get these out as soon as possible. But yeah, Major 4, Week 4, and then we're on to Major 2. And I'm pretty excited for that. Honestly, the tournament's been pretty good this year, honestly. It's been really good. You have your very clear top teams, and everybody else is pretty competitive with one or two notable exceptions, but everybody else is pretty much right there, so yeah, it's pretty interesting. Anything else you want to add for this week?
Yeah, one other thing to note, and we'll probably talk about this more next week. Major 2 is in Dallas, or just outside of Dallas, and Optic have been bad. So that even creates this really interesting storyline as we get into that major. So yeah, a lot more qualifier matches before we get there, but yeah, enjoy the ride.
Yeah. See you next week.